are these people?
So last week, we talked about the Boeing whistleblower. Did anything happen? Mm-hmm. Did anything happen this week about with Boeing? Nah. Like literally, so we did the show Sunday night. Monday morning, I wake up to learn that the CEO of Boeing has now resigned. Holy shit. So not only the CEO, but also some other key executives. So we've got this article from Truthout talking about mostly Boeing, but how the breakdown of safety is not unique to Boeing, that it's endemic to capitalism, which Snow Himbo would absolutely be screaming about and agreeing with. Yes, capitalism is the answer to all of our problems, and let's get rid of that. This is from Susan Kang from Truthout, not Sharon Zhang. Don't get the two confused. But the subheading is that heads are rolling at Boeing, but new leadership doesn't alter the labor conditions and profit motives that erode safety, which is pretty much what I tweeted that morning, which was that they're cleaning house in order to say that they cleaned house and that now things are going to be different. This is the Alaska Airlines plane that had the door fly off, by the way, that made the emergency landing at Portland.
Front fell off?
Roof flies off. That's George Carlin talked about that years ago. So, in a dramatic turn of events, Boeing CEO Dave Calhoun, as J.J. Bibbs, or as Cy Oppenheimer refers to him as Hoondog, announced on March 25th, 2024, that he will step down at the end of the year following the company's poor safety record, negative press, and significant financial losses following the multiple safety problems with its 737 MAX jets. Because I know for like when I decide to leave a job, I can stay there for another 9 months before I actually have to leave, even though it's because of your performance, right? That happens. Sure. The now infamous Alaska Airlines January flight, which you saw above, landing after a door panel blew off the plane mid-flight, led to the grounding of 171 737 MAX jets and subsequent mass cancellation of flights, of course, and an FAA order to suspend production on the 737 MAX. God only knows what that cost them. The NTSB has made the flight an investigative priority. That's nice. Since then, more dramatic accidents, as we know, have occurred, including a cracked windshield, plane fires. I don't think I've heard of a plane fire. Fuel leaks, stuck rudder pedals, at least one tire failure, and other problems. Yikes. That's no bueno. I hope I'm getting in an Airbus next time I get in a plane. I'll tell you that right now. So, the FAA announced in a February 26 report conducted by a panel of experts, including government, industry, labor, and academics over the past year, that Boeing failed 33 of 89 safety audits. That's all in its 737 MAX manufacturing process. Now, what did that lead to? The report led to a devaluation of Boeing stock, a market value of about $45 billion in 2024. That's a big hit. To say this has been devastating for the company and for the airline travelers' confidence is an understatement. Like I just said, I would definitely prefer to fly in an Airbus A320 right now. Calhoun, Hoondog, is not the only leader who departed, we know, or who has said they will. Other members of the executive leadership at the company have stepped down or announced their intention to as well. This massive, colossal fuck up, and all these people are just treating it like, meh, I'll hang out and I'll leave at the end of the year. I'll see. I'll be around. Like, how about people don't want you around? How about like some accountability for your actions? No, I guess not. So while the dramatic news of the deposed CEO has made many headlines, it's also a corporate sleight of hand, like I said earlier, that obscures the ways in which corporate profit motives including a failed safety culture that continues to leave workers vulnerable to reprisal, as well as ongoing attempts to undercut union plans, have promoted unsafe production practices permitted by a weak regulatory state regime. Now, a lot of people like Matt Stoller would argue that the regulatory state is actually very strong in this country, and things like this and child labor would say otherwise. Now, what she's saying here is that this latest corporate leadership shuffle is a signal to consumers and investors that the company means to improve confidence in Boeing's products, but we cannot understand the Boeing controversy in a vacuum. Right? So what is she talking about? Boeing was once known as the industry leader in manufacturing safe and well-made jets. Right? The 737, not the MAX, the 737 was the best-selling airplane in history, used by 80 airlines, actually with most of them operating in Asia. I didn't know that. That was something I learned reading this, right? Welcome to Rumble Go Start. All right, so, but in October 2018 and March 2019, less than 5 months apart, the Boeing 737 MAX jets experienced fatal crashes in Indonesia and Ethiopia, killing a total of 346 people. And these were failures. The FAA, of course, under President Orange Man Bad Donald Trump, was reluctant to ground the jets, but finally had to after following the lead of China's Aviation Authority, Canada, EU, and 10 other countries, while the jet underwent a 20-month safety review process. That's a long time to be grounded and not use these planes that they invested billions of dollars in. All right? So that's pretty bad. The agency then greenlit the jet to take flight again in November 2020, but still concerns persisted. Aviation experts argue that Boeing consistently has chosen financial gains over an abundance of caution when dealing with pressing safety concerns. Capitalism is another way to describe that. Much has already been written about how financialization of Boeing, exemplified by its relocation of some production from Puget Sound in 2001, was a key turning point for the company. Right. Okay. So their leaders knew there were serious safety problems with their company's 737 MAX jet and other products, yet they failed to institute systematic changes despite the fact that workers gave them such warnings, like we talked about last week.
Yep.
The American Airlines Pilots Union also urged Boeing to address 737 safety concerns in a meeting with Boeing executives prior to the deadly 2019 Ethiopian Airlines crash. Pilots asked Boeing leadership, this is unbelievable, to fix a malfunctioning anti-stall system called the MCAS. I've heard of this before, the Maneuvering Characteristics Augmentation System, which is designed to prevent the 737 from climbing too steeply and stalling, but Boeing's vice president pushed back, claiming that it wasn't clear that a malfunctioning system caused the 2018 Malaysian air crash. Then, to make matters worse, Boeing also refused to honor one pilot's request for additional training on 737, reprimanding him instead. And I'm like, wait a minute. I gotta see this story, because this is weird. All right. So this takes me to a Quartz story. This is linked, by the way, hyperlinked in this Truthout article to a Quartz story, because I had to follow this down a rabbit hole about, like, okay, it wasn't just a 737. They actually asked for more training on the MAX. So when I started reading into this, basically what the airline pilot that was requesting this said was that I had not basically had 45 minutes of an iPad simulator to get into this airplane and then be responsible for 186 people. Here it was. I was going to see the airplane for the first time in 45 minutes before departure, have 45 minutes to adjust to this new aircraft, after which I was going to have 189 new people in the back that I was responsible for. So I filed a report with the company that I'm not comfortable flying as a pilot in command of this. That is reasonable, right? But here's the story. This was 2019, by the way. His simulator request was denied as the carrier didn't have simulators for the MAX, and even now, only a few airlines even have them ready for training. All right? A request to fly with an instructor the first time was also denied, but eventually, after a 45-minute conversation with the head of the airline's 737 training department, he said they agreed originally that he could fly with an instructor on his first MAX flight, which was scheduled for July between two U.S. West Coast cities. So he gets to L.A., and there's no instructor. He calls the flight duty manager to ask where the instructor is, and he said, if you don't fly, then you're off the trip. And he's like, well, I'm not going to fly. And then he got taken off the trip and put a mark on his record called a missed trip, even though he was sitting in the seat, and they pulled him out because he refused to fly without the instructor that they agreed to provide. He said that missed trip cost him about $3,000 in lost pay, not a big deal, but as well as being a black mark on his record of reliability. That's the big deal. He then raised the issue with the union, filed reports internally with the FAA, and as info about his experience percolated to other pilots, several told him they had shared his concerns on training for the MAX. Like 50 of them, according to this guy. But the biggest thing is that he kept saying this is a completely different aircraft than the 737. It has different instrumentation in different places that's manufactured by different companies and run completely different software. And we're supposed to know how to operate all of this the same? Wow. So I thought that was interesting that he got reprimanded for requesting additional training time because they didn't have the means to train him. Changes in the federal safety regulation of aviation demonstrate how those endemic problems within Boeing's safety regime were permitted. Regulatory oversight of aviation was understaffed and under-resourced during the Trump administration, intentionally by Trump, by the way. He wanted to starve all these agencies, make them look incompetent. With the FAA's top position was vacant for 14 months. I remember he wouldn't appoint secretaries and heads of agencies. Then they had temporary heads in places for a long time, for about as long as they could legally be allowed to be. All right. So Trump's FAA gave more authority to private companies, but his admin isn't solely responsible for this deregulatory shift, as the FAA has been moving towards sharing regulatory oversight with manufacturers over the years. This sounds like the pharmaceutical industry, where they basically regulate themselves. Right? It began in 2004 under the Bush administration, against the protests of aviation unions who warned that such a move would hurt the safety of the industry and lead to more accidents. Right? While the dramatic news, this is just the thing, one of those quote caption things. Democratic administrations, by the way, have also had a hand in dismantling regulatory oversight. It's not just the Republicans. During the Obama administration, the FAA continued to increasingly delegate safety monitoring and oversight to private companies. Why publish? Why make something public and part of public safety when you can privatize it and somebody can profit from it, right? Part of the justification, right, for continuing the practice were concerns about the increasing competitive pressure from foreign jet plane manufacturing rivals above the concerns of watchdog investigations. This practice is now deeply institutionalized. Okay. I'm going to stop right there and I'm going to, again, repeat that sentence because that seems vaguely important. All right. Early on, during the Obama administration, here we go, the FAA continued to increasingly delegate safety monitoring and oversight to private companies. That seems like a big mistake, but part of the justification for continuing the practice were concerns about the increasing competitive pressure from foreign jet plane manufacturing rivals above the concerns of government watchdog investigations. Why? Here's why. FAA certified employees at private companies now do 90% of certifications, but there's also a lot of foreign regulators that are signing off on this stuff that may have access to sensitive equipment and stuff that, proponents of this sharing regulation seek to justify the agreement by arguing that industry innovation is outpacing the expertise of government regulators. But, of course, even private sector regulators are suffering from a lack of sufficient personnel, with high rates of turnover and retirements after COVID. What's interesting is that Truthout would never mention retirements because of COVID mandates is another thing. The airline pilots that had to retire and resign. Yeah, that guy. All right. This was also confirmed in the February FAA report, which confirmed the turnover of experienced personnel is a major concern. That's no bueno. That's no bueno.
So they're worried about
China.
They're always worried about China. The FAA report also revealed that the endemic anti-safety biases within Boeing's production process, right? February 2024 FAA report, FAA expert panels report, which is based on hundreds of employee interviews and review of 4,000 pages of documents, stated, quote, Boeing employees across all disciplines and roles expressed concerns over the lasting power of the SMS, or Safety Management System, program and its safety initiatives. This raises concerns about the sustainability of SMS. The lack of feedback and or delay in providing feedback jeopardizes the longevity of SMS. Yes, I think that's the intent. Because according SMS. According to that report, employees did not always understand. They didn't always understand Boeing's safety management systems. Of course not. Employees didn't always know the appropriate reporting channels and were not informed about the outcomes of their reports. Seems vaguely important. Employees also shared experience of retaliation and interference, especially in regard to salary and furlough ranking. That occurred when workers expressed safety concerns. Again, last week we talked about a guy who's no longer on this planet alive because of that. Possibly, allegedly. These retaliatory practices exacerbated the disconnect between the goals of corporate leadership and actual shop floor practices. Workers then found out anew that reporting safety concerns would lead to slowdowns in safety certification or production processes, which in turn could hurt economic goals. This is like union busting in a way. No, don't report the safety stuff, because then we won't be able to make our quarterly profits and we won't be able to get these things flying rather than getting it right. A workplace where employees cannot speak up without fear of reprisal and where their input isn't integrated in everyday production practices cannot be a company that truly prioritizes product and consumer safety. Yes.
Sounds like every fucking corporation right now out there.
Well, that's literally like the title of this is that this is an endemic of capitalism. This is exactly what you get as a result, right? As much as this story is one of consumer safety, Boeing's problems are also the result of an anti-worker culture. Rich Plunkett, who's their director of strategic development at their union, the Society of Professional Engineering Employees in Aerospace, released a statement in conjunction with the publishing of the February FAA report, right? He says, quote, our members have long reported a disconnect between the messaging they get from Boeing headquarters in Chicago or Virginia and the messages they get from their direct supervisors here. Quality and safety must be the Boeing company's core values, embraced by everyone, but the report reflects the reality that people who see something are afraid of saying something for fear of jeopardizing their careers. Because that's what's been happening. And as a result of the FAA report, the union requested the creation of an aviation safety action program, a collaboration between Boeing and FAA that would allow workers to bring forward safety concerns, including production and design errors, without fear of retaliation. And how is the FAA going to protect those workers from Boeing exactly? Sorry, I don't.
Safety nets.
They can fine them. They could ground planes. They could give away routes. They could do a bunch of different. They're not gonna.
They could build a wall.
We're gonna build a wall. Here we go. Like we talked about last week, perhaps one of the most tragic parts of this story is the loss of whistleblower John Barnett, Mitch, a former quality control manager who expressed multiple concerns about the safety at the company's 787 Dreamliner manufacturing plant in South Carolina. 787's also been grounded for multiple times for safety concerns, including over smoke and fire incidents. As we said, Barnett noted the significant differences in safety reporting in his unionized plant in Everett, Washington, in contrast to the failures of safety reporting in his non-unionized Charleston, South Carolina Boeing plant. There was one quality assurance inspector per 15 mechanics in Everett, but only one per 50 mechanics in Charleston, and many of those mechanics were also brand new to the industry. Barnett was participating in that deposition relating to his suit against the company, as we talked about last week, for the retaliation he suffered at Boeing for his whistleblowing activities, and then, of course, was found dead of an, I would say, alleged self-inflicted gunshot wound in the parking lot of a Charleston, South Carolina Holiday Inn on March 9th. May he rest in power. And
Hotel.
Yeah, that's a bad one.
Yeah.
Don't take, you got to take her friend. But evidence of Boeing's poor operations and organizational culture also came to light when the company declared it could not find documents related to the Alaska Airlines blown off butt plug, in response to a query from a Federation investigation. I don't think that's right. I think it's a federal investigation.
I don't know what happened. We lost all the documentation. I don't know what happened.
No, just a few key pages. Just like
the
with
cameras were just off.
Just like with the black box, and we'll talk about that later. It's clear that the company's toxicity towards safety-oriented employees has been devastating, as reflected by the February FAA report. The poor working conditions at Boeing were amplified, by a terrible contract negotiation in 2014, in which workers agreed to a contract that included givebacks on pensions, minimum wage increases, which was only 4% over 10 years. That equates to like less than 0.5% a year. Wow. And then it also locked them in this suboptimal set of conditions for a decade. To force an end to the company's fixed pension plan, Boeing threatened to take 777X production from Seattle to South Carolina, again moving it from union to non-union. The International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, which represents many Boeing employees, about 35%, is taking cues from the UAW and tight labor market to make strong demand. So that's nice. The union, it said, is this year is looking for 40% wage increases, and a return of the company's pension plan, in addition to other workplace protections. You're not going to get it. I mean, considering Considering that safety problems have emerged as Boeing has shifted production away from the highly unionized Puget Sound region to the South District 751, to the south, right? District 751 IAM President John Holden wants Boeing to commit to multiple decades of production in the Northwest. Why? They're not headquartered there anymore. They're moving stuff away from the Northwest, not toward the Northwest, although IAM machinists who have the experience are also requesting a seat on Boeing's board as a way to promote great future safety. Again, nice. They have zero, pull. But while the future of the 737 MAX remains unclear, what is clear is the retreat of the regulatory state, combined with Boeing's aggressive attacks on workers, both in terms of bargaining with unions and retaliating against individual workers who allegedly being involved with somehow seeing them no longer on this planet, has contributed to the enduring marginalization of safety culture at the company. Ooh, that's a devastating accusation and indictment. An enduring marginalization of safety culture. Some advocates see the FBI and DOJ's criminal investigation into the Alaska Airlines as progress, But this won't be the first criminal proceeding against Boeing. Right? While some consumers remain understandably frightened and are deliberately avoiding Boeing flights, these problems are not exclusive to Boeing. Breakdown of consumer safety measures is endemic to the neoliberal capitalist pursuit of profit in the provision of public services and to the to an employment regime that continually fails to provide adequate work protections for their workers. Workers' right to have a voice in their workplaces and to speak freely about product safety concerns is a necessary minimum for the safety of their products. Only when this basic condition is met in the U.S. Can keep people in the U.S. fly safely with confidence in the quality of their airplanes. So this was a little on the long side, but I just thought that there was a lot there with regard to the history of what Boeing's been doing, and how they're going to try to sweep this under the rug, how they've been moving production to from the Pacific Northwest. People know them like as a Seattle type of company, but they're no longer a Seattle company. That's a good point, Bad Cookies. Have you hit the like button yet, my fellow INN viewers? I hope you have. Gamer, good for you. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. So we've also got people that are popping over here on Rockfin. I'm looking for it. Wow, I have to scroll pretty far to find it. Yeah, Mad Mom says it sounds like they're having some QA issues. Oh, it just scrolled. Damn it.
No.
There it is. Yay!
You got it?
We can put Rockfin up. I am really happy with that.
I mean, he could before. He just didn't want to drag a monitor capture.
No, I had one. It just didn't look it didn't look right. That's all. So, yeah, I had
another plane forced to make an emergency landing yesterday.
The company is still requesting engineering exemptions.
Boeing's annual incentive plan changed from rewarding quality and safety to rewarding people hitting DEI and climate targets.
Welcome to Boeing, where we make earnings per share and also, I guess, planes. Sir, I still have a concern about the safety of our process for the new... Have you seen our new incentive pay? Our new plane is fuel efficient. It's the Prius of the skies. And once we hit all of those ESG targets, we've got enough to worry about, guys. Diluting our key priorities is problematic for safety. Don't you think there might one day be consequences to this? None that I can foresee. It's raining men. That's a dude, yeah, it's raining men. Amen. Our passengers, unlike our fuselage, will be screwed under this plan. It'll be fine. Things could not be going any worse. Have you seen our diversity score? Our executive team and door fastenings both have fewer nuts than before. If we reach our CO2 standards, I can buy that Panerai. Ooh, I really like that one. The only carbon plummeting is the body of that guy. Oh, don't tell me it's happening again. It's raining man. Another dude, yeah, it's raining man. Amen. Like Jim Morrison's overdose, this is really bad for the doors, man. Somebody need a bailout? No. Yeah, a little bit. That plane is on fire. No. It lit itself for Palestine.
Another plane for...
It lit...
And what?
Yes. I was like, wait. It said what? Yes, that plane is on fire. It lit itself on Palestine. Like, I don't quite understand that,
okay.
But the rest of it was kind of funny, and I was like, that's good. That was, I gotta bring that. It's raining planes. Yes, that's amen. Yes, amen. I don't know when we're gonna debut the Care Bear. I think we dropped it in the private chats for some people to see, and Colin can put that out whenever he'd like, but funny.